The old horse waited by the river the way a tired sentinel stands guard long after the war is lost. Its coat, once a proud chestnut, had faded into the dusty brown of a winter hillside. Ribs showed beneath the hide, not out of neglect but out of age, the kind that crept in slow as dusk across the plains. And though no reins bound it, and no voice called it, the horse stayed, quiet, watchful, gazing at the water as if that silver ribbon carried memories downstream. Jed Coulter spotted it while riding toward the bend he hadn't visited in 15 years. His own mare snorted nervously, hooves shifting in the red dirt as if she sensed something unnatural about the animal by the river. Jed felt it too. A prickling at the back of his neck. A strange pull in his chest. "That's impossible," he muttered, squinting against the late afternoon glare. But the shape didn't change. The sloping shoulders. The slightly crooked tail. The left ear nicked by a wolf bite from the winter of '67. Buck. The name left him before he even realized he'd said it. A whisper that broke into the air like a pebble tossed onto still water. The old horse lifted its head, ears turning toward him, eyes bright despite the hollow depth around them. No. Couldn't be. Buck had been gone for more than a decade, sold off when Jed left town, the same week he swore he'd never look back. Yet here he was. And so was Buck. Jed dismounted, boots crunching over the stones, every step slow, cautious, as though approaching a ghost might spook it into vanishing. The horse didn't back away. Didn't move at all. It simply watched him, tail flicking once in recognition. Jed swallowed. His throat felt like it filled with grit. "Boy, I ain't seen you in a long time." Buck let out a soft nicker, the kind he used to give when Jed brushed burrs from his mane. Jed reached out a hand, almost afraid his fingers would pass through empty air. But the animal was solid. Warm. Real. Old but real. A gust of wind pushed across the riverbank, carrying the smell of wet stone and cottonwood bark. Jed let out a slow breath, the kind that sinks a man deeper into his boots. "I don't know how you got here," he whispered, stroking the horse's muzzle. "Or why. But seeing you feels like something I ain't ready for. Because this river, this bend, it belonged to her. To Ella. And Jed had sworn he'd never return. Not after the choices he made. Not after the night that carved him apart." Buck turned, as if tugged by a memory of his own, and stepped closer. Then the old gelding bowed slightly, not a full kneel, just low enough that Jed knew exactly what it meant. The horse wanted him to mount. Jed hesitated. "Boy, I got my own mare. And you ain't got the strength to." But Buck nudged him, insistent. Determined. Just like when he'd refused to turn back from a trail he knew Jed needed to ride, even when the sky boiled black with storm clouds. "Damn you," Jed breathed, voice cracking. "You always were stubborn." He slid one hand along the horse's neck, feeling the tremble of muscles that still held some kind of fire. Maybe not much. Maybe just enough. Jed swung his leg over Buck's back. And the old horse moved instantly. No warm-up. No hesitation. Just a steady, sure-footed walk toward the north side of the river, toward the woods thick with cedar and oak. Jed grabbed the thin, wiry mane, though he didn't need to guide the horse. Buck knew exactly where he was going. "Why here?" Jed whispered. "Why now?" The river shimmered beside them, reflecting the deepening sky, purple, gold, and bleeding into the first bruised blue of night. The sound of water sliding over rocks was soft, almost gentle, like a lullaby from a time before the world turned harsh. Jed's heart thumped harder the closer they rode to the shadows of the old grove. "I ain't ready for this," he said. "I thought I buried it. Buried her. Buried what I did." But the horse kept going. And Jed knew, somewhere between his ribs and the memory he kept locked tight, that this wasn't coincidence. Wasn't chance. The horse was leading him to something inevitable. The first fireflies blinked awake, tiny sparks floating between the tree trunks. It felt eerie, dreamlike, like stepping into one of the stories Ella used to tell when they lay on blankets by the very same riverbank. Buck slowed as the path narrowed. Jed's breath chilled. His palms dampened against the horse's hide. The woods opened just enough to reveal a small clearing, overgrown, quiet, untouched by boots other than his own so long ago. And there, half swallowed by weeds and wildflowers, was the grave. A simple wooden cross. Weathered. Leaning. The initials carved into it barely readable beneath years of storms and seasons. E.R. Ella Rowan. Jed slid off Buck's back, knees nearly buckling when his boots hit the ground. He stared at the cross as if the wood itself might speak. "Why'd you bring me here, boy?" he whispered, though he knew the answer long before it came. He hadn't said goodbye. Not properly. Not honestly. Not the way a man should when the woman he loved died because of him. The night Ella died was a memory he fought to drown but never could. He could still feel her blood soaking into his shirt. Still hear her voice, soft as falling ash. Still see the lantern light flickering over her face as she tried to smile through the pain. "It ain't your fault," she'd whispered. But it was. Every damn bit of it. Jed sank to his knees in front of the grave, fingers brushing the damp grass. His throat grew tight, breath trembling like a man pushed too close to the edge. "I shoulda been here," he said. "I shoulda stayed. If I hadn't joined up with Riker's gang. If I'd done anything else that night." His voice cracked. Broke. Fell apart like dry bark beneath a boot. Buck stood behind him, silent and still, as though guarding him the way Jed once guarded Ella. "This world ain't right," Jed whispered. "Ain't fair. Ain't ever gonna be what it could have been." His eyes burned. His chest ached. He bowed his head toward the ground. "I loved you, Ella," he murmured. "And I shoulda told you more. Shoulda held you tighter. Shoulda." A twig snapped. Jed's head shot up. The wind stopped. The river hushed. Even the fireflies seemed to freeze midair. Something else moved in the trees behind him. Something human. Jed rose slowly from the grave, hand drifting toward the revolver holstered at his hip. He didn't draw, not yet. Just rested his fingers on the worn grip. The air felt different, charged, tense, as if the woods themselves held their breath. Buck's ears pricked forward, the old horse letting out a low warning sound deep in his throat. Jed scanned the shadows between the cedars. Who's there? No answer. Just the faint rustle of leaves. He stepped forward 2 paces, boots brushing through undergrowth, heart thumping with a rhythm he remembered too well from his outlaw days. He wasn't young anymore. Didn't move the way he used to. But danger had a smell, and it drifted on the breeze now, thin, metallic, a whisper of gun oil and sweat. "I ain't gonna ask twice," Jed called, voice steady but cold. "Come out where I can see you." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a figure slipped from behind the trees, hands raised, palms open to the dusk. Jed stiffened. It was a woman. Middle-aged. Gray at the temples, though her face still carried the shape of someone who'd once been young and fierce. She wore a faded wool coat, patched at the elbows, and her boots were caked in dried mud. A rifle hung across her back by a worn strap. Her eyes, though, those he knew. Brown. Sharp. Unblinking. "Lydia!" Jed breathed. The woman nodded once. "You sure took your sweet time comin' back." He hadn't seen her in 15 years. Ella's sister. Last he'd heard, she'd left town the same week he did, swearing she'd never let the land swallow her the way it swallowed everything else. "What are you doin' out here?" Jed asked. His voice softened despite himself. "I could ask you the same," she replied. But her gaze drifted past him, toward the cross half hidden by weeds. Something in her expression softened, not forgiveness exactly, but recognition of old hurt. Jed stepped aside, letting her approach. Lydia knelt by the grave, brushing away the leaves as though greeting an old friend. Her hands shook, but her face didn't. She'd always been harder than Ella, tougher, less forgiving of the world. "You kept up the grave?" Jed asked quietly. "For a while," she said. "Then life moved me around. Workin' ranches, cookin' for whoever paid. But I came back this year. Didn't think I'd find someone already here." Her eyes flicked toward him. "Least of all you." Jed swallowed. "I didn't plan on comin'. Buck brought me. Lydia's brow furrowed. Buck. Jed gestured at the horse, who stood a few paces away, breathing slow and steady like a tired guardian. Lydia stared. Her face went pale. Jed. Buck's been dead over a decade. I know that, he said quietly. But he's right there. She blinked. Then blinked again. Her gaze darted to the horse, then back at him, confusion knotting her features. Jed, she said softly, I don't see a horse. The ground tilted under him. He shook his head hard. He's right there. Look closer. Lydia, I'm tellin' you, he led me here. Her lips pressed tightly together. I believe you got led here. But I don't think it's a horse that did the leadin'. Jed's stomach twisted. He looked back at Buck, solid, unmistakable, watching him with those soft, familiar eyes. I ain't crazy, Jed muttered. Didn't say you were, Lydia replied gently. Just sayin', grief wears strange clothes. A shiver crept through Jed's bones. The air felt colder now, though the night hadn't fully fallen. The shadows around Buck seemed thicker, not wrong, not frightening, just different. Jed stepped back toward the horse and laid a hand on the old gelding's neck. Buck felt real beneath his palm. Warm. Breathing. He's here, Jed whispered stubbornly. Lydia didn't argue. She simply let the moment settle between them like dust in sunlight. After a long silence, she spoke again. I thought you'd never return. I tried not to, Jed admitted. Every time I thought about this place, something inside me twisted. But today, I felt pulled. Like the earth itself was calling. Ella used to say you felt things different than other folks, Lydia said softly. Like a horse that hears storms before they hit. Jed huffed a sad laugh. She was always giving me more credit than I deserved. Lydia didn't disagree. The wind shifted again, carrying the scent of pine and something faintly sweet, honeysuckle, maybe. Jed's heart tightened. Ella had loved honeysuckle. Used to braid it into her hair until he teased her about smellin' like a summer meadow. Lydia rose from the grave, dusting off her palms. I came back this year hopin' for some kind of peace, she said. But every time I walk this place, I feel her ghost more than I feel her rest. Jed stared at the cross. The weeds. The forgotten beauty of the grove. Lydia. I never meant for what happened. She shot him a sharp look. Jed. Don't. He lowered his gaze. I should have kept her out of it. You couldn't have, Lydia said. Ella loved you. You think that woman ever listened to reason when her heart chose something? She shook her head. She followed you into trouble long before that night. Jed clenched his jaw. But she died because of me. She died because life is cruel, Lydia corrected. And because men with guns don't care who gets in the way. Her voice softened again. But she never blamed you. Jed turned away, eyes stinging. The river hummed faintly in the distance, like it carried echoes of their past. Lydia crossed her arms. So why now? Why'd you really come back? Jed didn't know how to answer. Didn't know how to put into words the dream he had 2 nights ago. A soft voice calling his name. The shape of a woman standing by the river, her hair dancing in a wind he couldn't feel. And beside her, Buck. I think I'm bein' called, he murmured. Like something ain't finished. Lydia exhaled slowly. I hoped you'd say something different. Why? Because unresolved things tend to come due, she said. And I ain't sure what that means for you. Before Jed could ask what she meant, Buck suddenly lifted his head high, ears pointing east. Jed tensed. The horse stamped once, twice, snorting sharply. This time Lydia reacted, too. You hear that? Jed listened. Far off, maybe half a mile, came the unmistakable rhythm of hooves. More than one. Fast. Urgent. Jed felt cold settle into him. Riders. Lydia's hand went instinctively to the rifle at her back. They headin' this way? Seems like it. Buck pawed the ground, restless. Jed felt the shift inside him, a familiar instinct waking up, the one he thought he'd killed years ago. "Lydia," he said quietly, "you best stay behind me." "Like hell I will," she snapped, though her voice trembled just enough to betray nerves. The hooves grew louder. 5, maybe 6 horses. Maybe more. Jed stepped in front of her anyway. Buck moved closer, though when Jed glanced at Lydia, he realized she still didn't seem to see the horse at all. Branches snapped in the distance. Men's voices echoed through the trees. Jed rested his hand on his revolver. "Who'd know we're out here?" Lydia whispered. Jed's eyes hardened. "Riker's boys," he said. "If they followed me, then I didn't come here alone." The hoofbeats thundered closer. Jed took a slow, steadying breath. "This ain't about me anymore," he murmured. He looked at Ella's grave. "It's about finishin' what never got finished." The riders broke through the tree-line like a storm with spurs. 6 men, all armed, faces half hidden under wide brims. Jed knew 3 of them on sight. Boys he used to ride with back when he thought outlaw life was the only life that fit. They reined in hard when they spotted him, horses pitching dust and pine needles into the air. "Well, hell," drawled the man at the front. "If it ain't Jed Coulter, back from the dead." Jed's jaw tightened. "Ain't dead yet, Mace." Mace Riker grinned, a narrow, mean stretch of mouth that had never held Rayall humor. "We'll see 'bout that." Lydia stepped closer, rifle raised. "You boys got no business here." Mace tipped his hat at her. "Miss Rowan." He looked her up and down without respect. "Didn't know you were still alive." "Alive enough to put a bullet where it counts," she snapped. Jed shifted slightly in front of her, a quiet barrier. Mace noticed. His smile widened. "Well now," Mace said, "ain't this sentimental?" Jed protected himself, another Rowan girl. "Tell me, does tragedy taste sweeter the second time around?" Jed didn't move, didn't blink, just stared him down. "What do you want?" he asked. "You know damn well," Mace replied. "You left something of ours unfinished years ago. Riker warned you, if you ever stepped foot back in these woods, debt comes due." "That debt was paid the night Ella died," Jed said. His voice trembled once before he steadied it. "Paid in full." A murmur rippled through the riders. Mace's smile vanished. "Funny thing," he said tightly. "We never agreed." The men behind him shifted their hands toward holsters. Buck, still unseen to Lydia but solid as stone to Jed, took one step forward, planting himself at Jed's side. The gesture was so familiar, so instinctive, it pierced Jed's chest. For a moment, he almost forgot what flesh and shadow could or couldn't see. Buck was there. That was enough. Mace spat on the ground. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Coulter." Jed angled his body. His right hand hovered low, fingers grazing the smooth, sweat-polished grip of his Colt. His heartbeat slowed, old instincts returning like wolves to a whistle. "You step 1 inch closer," Jed said quietly, "and you'll meet the ground before your horse knows you're gone." Mace's eyes flashed. "You really think you can outdraw 6 men?" Jed lifted his chin. "I only need to outdraw you." A silence fell. Thick, heavy, electric. The wind whispered through the leaves. The river hummed. Fireflies pulsed like dim lanterns. Then everything happened at once. Mace's hand dropped. Jed's gun flashed. The woods exploded into gunfire. The first shot blasted through the clearing, Jed's bullet ripping straight into Mace's shoulder, sending him spinning from the saddle. Chaos erupted. Horses reared. Men shouted. Lydia fired twice, the recoil shaking her whole body but her aim holding true. One man toppled backward, hitting the forest floor with a thud. Jed moved with a grace he hadn't felt in years. Shots cracked around him, splintering bark, cutting through leaves. Buck surged forward, shielding Jed with his body. Jed fired again, striking a rider's hand and sending his gun flying. "Behind you!" Lydia shouted. Jed spun just as a man charged him with a knife. Jed slammed his forearm into the man's wrist, knocking the blade aside, then drove his fist into the rider's jaw. The man fell, groaning. Another rider leveled his revolver at Lydia. Jed didn't think, didn't breathe. He fired. The man fell. Lydia gasped but kept shooting, her face pale and set with the kind of anger that comes from years of buried grief. Within seconds, long, violent seconds, the clearing went still. Groans. Whimpers. The reek of gunpowder like burnt metal in the air. Mace lay on the ground, clutching his bleeding shoulder, glaring up at Jed with pure, bitter hatred. "You," he panted. "You should have died with her." Jed holstered his gun, stepped toward him. The night thickened around them, shadows stretching long. "No," Jed said softly. "I should have lived better for her." He crouched down, eyes level with Mace's. "You boys leave here. Go far. You come near this grove again, I won't be so forgiven." Mace spat blood. "You ain't forgiven." "No," Jed corrected, "but I ain't looking to kill more ghosts than I already got." He stood. Lydia lowered her rifle, breathing unevenly. Mace staggered to his feet with the help of 2 surviving riders. They dragged the others, living or dead, back toward the tree-line. "This ain't over," Mace rasped. Jed stared at him, eyes calm and cold. "It is. You just don't know it yet." The men disappeared into the dark. Hoofbeats faded. Silence returned. Lydia dropped her rifle and braced her palms on her knees, catching her breath. "You always did pick trouble like flowers, Jed." Jed let out a tired exhale. "Ain't flowers I wanted." Buck approached, nudging Jed's shoulder gently. Jed stroked the horse's muzzle, gratitude swelling in his chest. Lydia watched him quietly. "Still don't see nothin', you know." Jed smiled sadly. "Maybe you ain't meant to. Maybe you're the one seein' what you need," she replied. Jed didn't argue. He didn't know himself what Buck was anymore. Spirit, memory, some last tether to what he lost. But the horse felt real. Real as pain. Real as love. Jed walked back toward Ella's grave. The moon climbed higher now, casting pale silver across the clearing. Lydia stood beside him. "What now?" she asked. Jed placed his hand on the wooden cross, tracing the faint grooves of her initials. His throat tightened. "I think I came to say goodbye," he whispered. "But maybe I came to finish livin', instead of dyin' slow." Lydia nodded. Her hand trembled until she rested it over his. "You ain't the only one who needed that," she said softly. For a long moment they stood in the quiet, the river murmuring behind them like an old hymn. Jed felt something loosen in his chest, like a knot finally untying. Then Buck stepped forward again. The horse bowed his head, not asking to be mounted this time, just offering a farewell. Jed reached for him, hands sinking into the horse's old, rough mane. "Thank you, boy," he whispered, "for bringin' me home." Buck exhaled, breath warm against Jed's cheek. Then the wind lifted. A soft gust swept through the clearing, stirring the leaves, the grasses, the wildflowers over Ella's grave. When Jed opened his eyes again, Buck was gone. No hoofprints. No sound. Nothing. Just the river. The grave. The night. Lydia watched him quietly. "You okay?" Jed wiped a tear he didn't mean to show. "Yeah," he murmured. "For the first time in years. I think I am." He looked at Ella's grave one last time. "I'll carry you different now," he whispered. "Not as a wound. As a memory." Lydia touched his arm. "Come on. Let's get back before the dark gets thick." He nodded. Jed turned toward the path, feeling the weight of grief lift, not gone, but gentler. He paused once more, glancing over his shoulder. For just a heartbeat, he thought he saw a shape near the trees, a woman in a pale dress, hair dancing like river grass, a horse standing beside her. Then she was gone. Jed smiled faintly. "Goodbye, Ella," he whispered. And he walked out of the grove, ready, finally, to live again.